There is a reason the same men keep winning, and it is not talent. You are watching it happen around you right now, and most people will never figure out why. You can completely change your trajectory once you understand what is actually driving it. This is not luck, it is a pattern, and it runs in the background of every decision these men make. When I was 19, I had a mentor who ran 3 businesses simultaneously. Not side projects, real operations, staff overhead, the whole thing. I used to watch him move through problems that would have paralyzed me, and I kept asking myself the same question: what does he know that I don't? One afternoon I finally asked him directly. I said, "How do you stay ahead of everything?" He looked at me for a second and said, "I stopped trying to feel ready before I moved. I almost dismissed it. It sounded too simple." But I kept thinking about it, and the more I watched him, the more I realized that one sentence explained almost everything I was seeing. Most people assume winning comes down to talent, connections, or timing, and if you have been doing everything right and still feel stuck, that belief is working against you, because it means the gap between where you are and where you want to be is permanent, that it is just who you are. That is not what the research shows. Psychologists studying high-performance men across different fields keep landing on the same finding. Winning is not a trait, it is a behavioral loop. And the men running that loop, most of them built it from nothing. In this video, I'm going to break down 4 specific things those men do differently. Not attitude, not routine, the actual mechanics of how they think and decide. If you feel lost right now, that is not a disqualification. It might be exactly the position from which this finally makes sense. The first one is move early, plus learn from the result. And the best way to understand it is to look at what happened the first time Elon Musk tried to launch a rocket. Most men wait until they have the full picture before they move. Winners move first and use the result to build the picture. Behavioral economists call this action bias, and research from the University of Chicago found that in high uncertainty environments, early movers collect information that late movers never get access to because the window closes permanently. The first Falcon 1 rocket failed, second one failed, third failed. By the 4th attempt, SpaceX had real failure data that Boeing and Lockheed had never collected because those companies were still waiting to feel ready. They were not being careful, they were being slow. And slow in that environment meant permanently behind. Speed does not mean reckless, it means setting a good enough threshold instead of a perfect one and moving the moment you clear it. Every man who looks like he had a head start was just someone who lowered his entry bar early enough that the learning began before anyone else showed up. The second one is named the hit plus keep moving. There is a type of man you have probably seen at work. He gets bad news in the morning, and by the afternoon he is still carrying it into every room he walks into. You can feel it on him. Now there is another type who gets the same bad news, and 2 hours later he is running his next meeting like nothing happened. Same pressure, completely different response time. That gap is not personality, it is a trained mechanic. Psychologist James Gross at Stanford found that the strategy most men use to cope with an emotional hit, pushing it down and carrying on, actually extends how long it stays with you. The strategy that works is naming it out loud to yourself. Not, "I am fine, I am embarrassed, I am angry, I am scared." That single act cuts the intensity of the emotion by roughly 50% because your brain processes the feeling instead of storing it. The man who names the hit and gives himself a hard window to sit with it before moving forward is not suppressing anything, he is processing faster. And that processing speed, repeated across hundreds of bad days, becomes a gap that looks like mental toughness from the outside. The third one is drop the old story, plus step into the next. Think about a man you know who should be further along than he is. Smart, capable, no obvious reason he is stuck. Chances are it is not his skills holding him back, it is the picture he has of himself that he built years ago and has never updated. Most men carry a fixed identity assembled from old evidence. Old wins, old losses, old feedback from people who knew a younger, smaller version of them. When a situation demands something that does not match that picture, they reject it quietly. It just does not feel like them. A man who built his reputation around being the tough one in the room will not ask for help until it is too late. A man whose whole identity is being the underdog will sabotage himself the moment he starts to win because winning breaks the story. Jeff Bezos said, "The most dangerous thing a company can do is fall in love with its business model instead of its mission." That applies to men too. The identity is equipment. You upgrade equipment when it stops doing the job. Separate what you have done from what you are willing to become and ask directly which version of yourself the next level actually requires. The fourth one is the one most men resist hearing. Outlast everyone, plus let time stack. And the clearest example of it alive right now is Warren Buffett. Angela Duckworth at the University of Pennsylvania spent over a decade studying what separates men who break through from equally talented men who plateau. Her finding was not effort. It was the ability to keep going through the stretch where effort produces nothing visible. She calls it grit. Her data shows that the men who make it are statistically the same as the men who don't in the early stages. The gap opens in the middle, in the invisible period where nothing is working and most men quietly decide they were never meant for this anyway. Warren Buffett is not the smartest investor on Wall Street. He will tell you that himself. What he has that almost no one else does is 70 years at the table. The longer you stay in a field, the more access, pattern recognition and credibility you collect that no newcomer can shortcut or buy. That is not inspiration, it is math. A bad month does not mean you are losing, it means you are still in position. And position is what converts into wins when the conditions finally shift in your favour. If you are lost right now, you are not behind. You are standing at the exact point where most men exit. The ones who stayed, who moved before they felt ready, who named the hit and kept going, who dropped the old story and stepped into the next version, who refused to leave the table. Those are the men you are watching win. Now you know what you are watching. Leave a 1 in the comments if this landed. Leave an 8 if you want me to go deeper on any of these.